I'll be down here in a second.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Rogue One rate up. Almost said it. Rebel Nerd Radio.
Bite your tongue, sir.
Kryptonian Chronicles. We are back. Haven't done an episode since October. It was late October, so it hasn't been really that long. We need to try to be more consistent with these, though. I'll blame myself on that one. This time around, we are going to be talking about Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. However, before we jump into that, I wanted to chat a little bit about a trailer that just dropped a few days ago. On our last episode, we talked about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, the book on which the movie will be loosely based, and we got a trailer for it. What do you guys think?
JD?
Of the trailer.
Well, considering that when I saw the Superman trailer, I was a little I was unsure and skeptical. After I saw this, and then after I saw the movie, and then I saw this trailer, I'm actually kind of excited. It's cool because I did see like references to like the sword, and I saw like the bar scene and like a few other things that came out from the comic book. So I'm actually excited. I'm interested to see what he does. I think it's going to be when Steve says loosely based, I think he's being sincere about the loose part, but yeah,
well,
I'm excited.
I say loosely based because I mean you can't really do a panel by panel adaptation of a book like
right. But at the same time, it's like how much of the actual book, or how much of the comic book is actually going to be in it. But I mean, I was surprised. Like I said, I saw the sword, so there was references to the sword. There was references to her companion who hires her. So a lot of that's going to be in there. We'll just see how much the story changes.
Yeah, I think
Lobo.
We're going to get the premise pretty good. I think it's going to be a better adaptation of the story than, let's say, for example, trying to adapt Age of Ultron or Civil War.
True.
I mean, those are adaptations in name only. They don't really even follow the storylines. This is, I think, going to be an actual adaptation of this book. Based on what we saw, those are specific scenes or versions of scenes from the book. And the book is phenomenal. So you'd be hard pressed to make it better, But
and we get to see Lobo.
Yeah. I think I might be the only person who's not super excited about that.
I wouldn't say I'm excited to see Lobo. I'm a little confused as to why they're putting him in a movie based on a story that he's not in.
Apparently, in the original pitch, Tom King did have Lobo in the story.
Okay, well, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, and we also know. We also know.
Think of a few points in the story itself where that would make sense. That being said, I am going to what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to trust that they're doing it for a reason.
What were you about to say, JD?
I mean, you have to remember where James Gunn came from. I mean, obviously, he really got a lot of his popularity from like Guardians of the Galaxy, so Marvel. And the big thing at Marvel was they would insert like cameos from characters to be like, oh, wait a minute, this guy's coming next, and that kind of thing. That was their big thing. So I have a feeling that's why they're doing it, is because they're translating that same template over to DC, where they want to introduce these characters. So all of a sudden you see like a snippet of him, or you see like just a small cameo or whatever. And it's like, oh, cool. Lobo, there's Lobo. We're going to get Lobo. It's going to be that same, kind of thing. So I have a feeling that's the biggest reason why they did it.
So keep in mind, James Gunn is not directing, nor did he write this movie.
Right, but he is kind of in charge of it, though.
Right. Correct.
So he is kind of spearheading the whole thing. So he's kind of giving him okay, you need to do this, you need to do
like
this for the
Kevin
next.
Feige of the new.
Yeah,
DC.
he's planting the seeds. He's trying to manage the whole thing. So
I have to disagree. I don't think that they're doing let's just throw in character A because they're going to show up later in a different movie. I think they're purposefully trying to not do that, but the reason why there are all these other characters is they're trying to show this is a fully formed, lived-in world. At least that's my take.
Okay.
But as far as Lobo is concerned, he's one of those characters that, to me, exemplifies everything wrong with 90s comics. Pouches, big muscles, tiny feet, trying to be really macho and all that garbage. That era where you couldn't tell who's the hero or who's the villain unless you told the difference by whose name was on the masthead. And
the age
not a
of
big
the
fan of Lobo, are you?
The age of the anti-hero.
Yeah. No, I'm not a fan of Lobo, not a fan of a lot of that stuff.
So
honestly,
I got to go in saying I'm not a huge fan of Lobo. He's not like, I wouldn't even say a top 20 DC character for me. That being said, I think Jason Momoa is a perfect pick to cast him.
100%.
I think he is a better cast for Lobo than he was for Aquaman.
Oh, leaps and bounds.
That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
I mean, I thought he was good as Aquaman.
I think he did good. I just don't think that he was like, I don't know, just like not true to the origins of the character, I guess.
It was very it was an interesting casting, but he's perfect for Lobo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
But getting to see Millie Alcock in the role in this trailer, I'm pretty excited to see what she does.
Oh, agreed. She seems perfect, just absolutely perfect for this.
Yeah, and I mean, we can't forget the puppy. Puppy's important. Got to have the puppy.
Did you like that the newspaper he was peeing on was a story about Superman?
Peeing on Superman, yeah.
That was funny, especially since he just got done caretaking for him, and then he pees on his image, and it's awesome. That was funny.
And there's another story on that cover that says about Supergirl saving a cat.
Yeah.
I can't claim that I'm the one who found that, because after I watched it, I did also watch a bunch of reaction videos, and I think it was Screen Crush pointed it out. It was the first person I saw.
I didn't catch it either, but
it was real quick. It was even hard to read the Superman title.
Yeah.
I was already excited for this movie, but I am even more excited after seeing the trailer.
I am too.
Really looking forward to this movie.
I think it's the interesting part of it is like reading the comic, reading the comic or reading the book before the movie comes out and then seeing the movie. It's almost like reading, I don't know. I think it's different from that perspective, because like books and comics put so much more information into it. And then you go and you watch the movie and you're like, what they're thinking, or you have inside information. or whatever. And as opposed to like going and watching a movie and then reading the book afterwards and going, well, that's not what I interpreted. That's not what I interpreted. So it's kind of interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. And I think, honestly, I think this is going to be probably one of the first movies that I can think of where I've actually read the comics or read the entire comic panel that it's based on through and through before actually seeing the movie. Because I've read books before I've seen the movies, but I've not read a comic about the movie and then seen the movie afterwards. So it's going to be a new perspective for me. It'd be kind of cool.
You're welcome.
Thanks, buddy. I was thinking about this when we were talking about doing this. I was like, because of these two, aside from like the 90s when like the death of Superman and like the Bane trilogy in the 90s and stuff like that, this is the most I've read comic books in the last like 6 months than I have in the last like 20 years. It's crazy. Yeah, you're welcome. You too. I'm telling you what.
You know what we should do? We should all get together and go see this movie together, like when it comes out.
Dave, where do you live?
I live in Moore, Oklahoma. I'm close to Steve.
Yeah, he's pretty close.
Yeah.
He just lives like one town over. So whether that means we drive up to Wichita to see you,
or I can drive down there.
Yeah, there's plenty of theaters down here. I of course prefer AMC because that's where my subscription is.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been to the one up here, Steve. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's a good AMC theater.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to go, the few times I do go to the theater, I go to the Warren IMAX.
Yeah.
And I love that theater.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a Regal now, so it doesn't accept your membership. Sorry.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, if we got to do that, then we'll do that. But
I do too. Normally, I'm with you, Dave. I normally, when I go to the theaters, it's usually the Warren, and they have a real good like adult like 21 and over area that you can get drinks and stuff like that while you're there. And then they also have a balcony one that you go to, and then they have the IMAX domes as well. So
they have a new Regal right across, like literally right across the street from the AMC that I go to most often. It's remember Dave, the Hollywood Theater?
Yeah.
In Norman? Yeah, it's that building. They completely redid it.
Good. I'm glad that building is getting used.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts on the Supergirl trailer.
Great. Can't wait for the movie.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm in anxious anticipation.
Heck yeah.
So, Steve, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about All-Star Superman. It was written by one of my favorite writers.
You hate Grant Morrison's writing.
What's that?
I said you hate Grant Morrison's writing for the most part.
I wouldn't say that I hate him. I'm not. Generally speaking, I am not a huge fan of Grant Morrison, and
I was gonna say I detected some sarcasm in his voice. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: I actually recorded a review of this same book about 2.5 years ago with our friend JD with Spencer for his podcast. And while I did not trash the book, I was not a big fan of it because I had not so much now, not as much now, but I have problems reading Grant Morrison's material. A lot of it stems from Final Crisis. Trying to read that book, maybe I should give it another try. But I have a hard time with that book. So in general, I'm just not a huge fan of Grant Morrison. That being said, I did recently, and this is like within that 2.5 years, so fairly recent-ish. I did read his run of X-Men. Absolutely loved it. Loved the Grant Morrison run of X-Men. Absolutely loved it. Then I went back and reread because I read it and didn't like it the first time. His run on Batman. Again, really liked it. And I'm like, okay, do I really dislike Grant Morrison, or do I just dislike Final Crisis? Because, of course, I reread this book for today's episode, and I'm like, okay, actually, I really like it. But okay, so this was written. It was part of an ongoing. I guess you can kind of say ongoing. It was like a 12-issue miniseries. It ran from November 2005 to October 2008, and written by Grant Morrison, drawn by Frank Quietly. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, at least that's what I've heard.
Yeah, and it was when I went to reread it, I don't actually own a physical copy of this book, so I read it on Comixology yesterday, and it had the label of the Black Label series. I don't know if it was originally released as a Black Label series.
Black Label didn't exist then. It was, I'm not sure why that particular edition was put out on Black Label. It because there's nothing overtly adult about this book.
Yeah.
It's not super violent. There's no knocking of boots. It's not a lot of bad words, if any. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting that it was on Black Label. But yeah, that being said, yeah, it was a 12-issue miniseries, and apparently there was an animated adaptation of it that I wasn't aware of. So I'll have to go back and watch that at some point.
Yeah, it came out in 2011, and while there is a lot edited out, I think it does a pretty good job of bringing the story to the screen. It mirrors Frank's artwork pretty well, and I think it hits the important beats of this series, because as much as I like the series, and I think it should, in the greater comic book canon, should replace some books that have been there for 30 years as the go-to superhero book. I do have issues with it, and I do think there's some filler stuff that could go away. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
I did. Yeah, I can agree with that. Reading it again yesterday, I was like, did this really need to be here? I don't know. But as if you didn't already notice, we are dropping some stuff from Kryptonian Chronicles. We're not going to do the comic book. Here's what's coming in Superman comic. It just kind of felt fillery and unnecessary. So we are jumping right into All-Star Superman. Just really a brief synopsis. It's not an origin story.
No, it's the opposite, actually. It's a death story.
Yeah, it's Superman finds out he's dying because his body was oversaturated with
solar radiation.
Solar radiation, yeah. So he is trying to make peace with his death, and make sure that everything on Earth is going to be okay once he leaves. And that's really, in a nutshell, what this is about.
Yeah, and I think it does a really good job telling that story. Just as a quick and dirty thoughts, but so I want to talk about the opening pages.
Okay.
So issue 1 opens up with 3 pages. You have the page that gives us, it's basically 3 pages telling his origin story, and 2 of the pages are a spread, like one what's that called? Double page spread.
Yeah.
So I think it is it's the best, most concise telling of his origin. Actually, I wouldn't say it's the best. It's the most concise telling of the origin, and I think it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was a good thing that Grant did not go with a full-fledged origin. And I'm actually trying to get those pages pulled up so I can. Yeah, very, very well done. And as you said, very concise. Doomed planet, desperate scientists, last hope, kindly couple. That's all you got to say.
Yeah. So I have some other thoughts on the first issue. We have this is the beginning where, well, first of all, Clark has to fly to the sun because some scientist is out there in some contraption studying the sun like real up close, and Lex Luthor from jail takes control of one of his employees, turns him into a monster. Hilarity ensues. Superman has to come up, save him, so on and so forth. There is, well, what do you think of that as a beginning of the story?
I think it is a good opening to what transpires throughout the rest of the book. Here's Superman doing Superman. He's helping out. That's what Superman does. And unfortunately, this time it kind of bites him in the ass, so to speak.
Yeah, this is also in these first few pages. We get introduced to this version of Lex. We get introduced to Lois and Jimmy and Perry and Lombard. Yeah, Lombard. Yeah. So we kind of get, and Cat Grant as she's staring at some guy's giant package. We kind of get the whole, crew. I mean, she is.
She is.
No, you're right. Is. I mean, it's like obvious as hell.
Yeah. So I think it's a really good introduction of these characters. Now, in the midst of Superman getting inundated with solar radiation, he all of a sudden starts to get some new powers. And this is one of those things that I think ties into one of the goals of the creators of the story. This is an homage to the Silver Age, specifically Silver Age Superman. And Silver Age Superman would have random ass powers all the time for no good reason, and they would never come back. So I thought that was a nice little nod to the Silver Age.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, it's.
And in fact, most of my problems that I have with this is the fact that I think it's too Silver Agey at points.
I can see that. So while we're talking about the first few pages, I wanted to pop up this image that I really like this drawing.
Oh yeah, this is an iconic image of Superman.
So I want to say, and we're gonna maybe I'll save this for when we talk about the artwork, or I don't know.
Well, you want to talk about the artwork now? You brought it
up.
Okay,
so here's the thing about the artwork. When I first, like, and we'll harken back to 2.5 years ago when I was not a fan of the artwork. It was like, as much as I didn't care for Grant Morrison's writing in the book, I felt that the artwork was very weak and did not. I didn't like it. It wasn't until after reading the entire Grant Morrison run of X-Men, which Frank also worked with, that I came to appreciate it a little bit more and understood where he was coming from. So when I read this yesterday, I was like, okay, I see it now. I see what he's trying to do here, and I do like it because it fits the narrative. But that image that's probably one of my favorite pages in this book.
Yeah. JD, what do you think about the art?
I like the art. I was a little skeptical when I saw like the cover, because it just didn't look. I don't know. It looked. I don't know how to describe it. It just didn't look right. I didn't like the cover art that well. So I was a little concerned about how overall it would turn out. And then I saw the once I started to read the pages and I started to see it, I was kind of like, okay, it makes a little bit more sense. But then again, I mean, it's like any other comic. I think it's like cover art is just trying to get you engaged and say, oh, that looks cool. What else is in it? And then the next thing you know, they got. And I like the image of the sun thing. I thought that was pretty cool. But when you guys were talking about like the overall, like the beginning of it, like they talked about his origins again, and they went through and they just kind of briefly stepped on what was going on and that kind of stuff. It was kind of like the whole book was weird in that sense, because it was like the whole book was like a start to finish short story of like who Superman was, instead of telling an entire series or an entire timeline of who he was, like going through all the years of who he was. It was like they were trying to go through just like a real quick, kind of a real quick synopsis of the character of Superman, instead of telling, that sort of thing. So it was, like I said, the introductory being so quick, it was just like they were kind of trying to refresh your memory or something like that. But no, I overall throughout the whole book, I like the artwork.
It is a 12-issue series, so it's not short, and I think the point was to tell a compact, singular story, and that's one of the things that works about it. I like the art. Frank Quitely has a very unique style, and sometimes it takes a while to get used to that. The first time I ever read Kingdom Come, which has art by Alex Ross, whose art is different than anyone else in comics, like ever.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get used to it. I think with the guy who did the art for Superman for All Seasons.
He also Tim Sale?
No. Yeah, Tim Sale.
Okay.
It took me a little while to get used to his art as well in Superman for All Seasons. But I think what works really well with this art is it invokes the Silver Age very, very well. Also, I read the series Jupiter's Legacy that he did the first arc part of, and I got a better feel for his art overall. So since I had 2 points of reference, and now my cat wants to leave the room.
Yeah, figures. Yeah, it's definitely, his artwork is, like you said, it takes some getting used to. and exactly what I was going to say. It's very unique. Another image here. I'm not crazy about his face in this panel. Outside of his face, I think it's good artwork. I don't know, just something about the face. I don't know. Just not sure.
I don't know what to do with that. So
he's got this really like squinty eyes, small nose, and a huge jaw.
Yeah, it's just I don't know.
There's another moment in this issue before we continue on with the story that I want to talk about. So it's the introduction of Clark Kent. And there is a very fun panel. He's running in to the office. He's putting his tie on, and he just trips like a champion before falling flat on his ass right in front of Perry White. And it is okay. I really, really dislike the way they did Clark Kent in this. Because if you thought Christopher Reeve was bumbling, Grant Morrison was like, hold my beer. And so there's a better way of doing the bumbling part. I think it was handled perfectly in the first episode of season 2 of Supergirl, where they introduced Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. And there's a scene, they're coming out of an elevator and he's helping pick up someone's stuff that knocked over. And she's like, wow, you've really got this klutzy thing down. And he's like, nope, that was real. So
I think this is the panel you're talking about right here.
Yep.
Yes. and I get it. Again, this is an homage to the Silver Age. This is a very Silver Agey thing. I hate it. I really dislike the way that Clark is portrayed in the story. I hate some other things more, but this really bothers me.
See, it does not bother me. I think it's kind of funny.
No, I mean, it is funny, but it's, and again, going back to the Silver Age, in the Silver Age, Clark was more of the disguise and Superman was who he really was. And I think that's ass backwards. And I don't know, it just bugs me. And then, of course, you've got the moment where he's trying to tell Lois, I'm Superman. And she's like, neighbor, please. She just is like, no, you're not.
She doesn't believe him.
Yeah. Get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? Right. Why are you trying to pretend you're Clark the whole time? And he's like,
that was almost like a fast forward version of the scene from the original Superman movie. It was like a fast forward version of it. It was so, and that's something that threw me off about it, was because I assumed that this was a comic where she already knew that. Yeah. So it threw me off when he's like, I'm Superman. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? I thought she already knew that. I mean, we're in the age where they were married at one time. So that threw me off. That threw me off.
This is a pretty self-contained story.
Yeah, and that's what I realized afterwards, that this is kind of just a one-off, one-shoot kind of thing, kind of a what if or a sandbox edition of the Superman story.
Yeah, it's an Elseworlds.
Yeah.
But so after the introduction of him trying to tell Lois, that's when we get into issue 2, and we get to the Fortress of Solitude. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get something that should be familiar because it popped up in this summer's film, the Superman robots.
Yep.
What did you guys think of the Fortress of Solitude?
I really liked it. This is where some of the artwork, I think, really kind of shined. I liked there's a panel. Let me find it. Okay, there it is. I'm going to share this with you. I really like this panel, like a lot.
Oh yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's just it's got like his penny and yeah, it's just I really like the depiction of candor here. I don't know, just something about this panel really showcases Frank's artwork. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's a gorgeous panel.
Yeah.
The rest of this issue is basically told from Lois's point of view, and it is her hanging out with Superman at the fortress, and she accidentally gets hired in a kite. I mean, she is off her rocker, just fucked up, and so she gets real paranoid.
She sniffs something she shouldn't.
Yeah, she gets really, really paranoid, and then starts to freak out. What'd you guys think of that?
It kind of threw me for a loop for a minute because I didn't really know, like where they were going with it, because it kind of gave me the vibe of like when they were worried about like in the Superman movie, they were talking about his parents, like his actual parents were dicks, and they were trying to get him to like recreate the the Kryptonian people on Earth with a harem and all that kind of shit, And when that was going on, you're seeing it through her eyes. You're like, what the hell's going on? What's he doing? And I'm like, it's got to be. I mean, it's Superman. There can't be something weird going on. So I didn't know what was going on. And then then it finally found out that she sniffed some chemicals that she wasn't supposed to. She was paranoid, hiring a kite. It's like Superman's version of LSD or whatever. Come to find out, that's not what was going on. He was actually trying to give her, something that was personal to him, which was a gift of what he could do and how, and what he was capable of, so she could see it from his perspective, which was cool. That was pretty cool.
One of the things that jumped out to me in reading it this time around was Superman's behavior was kind of sus. And it was like, sir, what are you doing? Why is this happening? And I'm sure that's because we're being told the story through the point of view of Lois, who again was out of her gourd, hallucinating. But it was, I don't know. Steve, what do you think?
I feel like this is one of those unnecessary parts of the story. I don't think it lent anything positive to the story overall.
So would you basically have just not had this issue and jumped right into issue 3?
Not necessarily. There were things about the Fortress of Solitude portion of the story that I thought were good. Just kind of, I don't know, from the point where she like shoots him with the kryptonite ray, it's just kind of like, I don't know. From there on, it just got kind of weird.
It did show that it was proving a point, though, that his power was becoming he was getting so supercharged that Kryptonian weaponry wasn't even affecting him. So like it was getting to the point where he even, he was getting pretty unstoppable at that point.
I thought the part with her getting high and getting his powers was issue 3.
No, her getting being all paranoid is issue 2. Issue 3 is where she gets her power.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't read like the miniseries. I just read all the way through.
Yeah. So let's talk about issue 3. So this is the trope of Lois getting Superman's powers. I think this was also done really, really well in Smallville season 10. There was an episode of Lois getting Clark's powers. And we also get the inclusion of 2 gigantic jackasses in Samson, calling him a phone, and Atlas.
Also unnecessary.
I thought that of all the parts, I will agree with Steve on that one. Of all the parts in that whole thing, that part with those 2 pining over her and challenging him to, like, for her affection, that to me was just odd. And then she's like, what's wrong with a little competition over my love? And I'm going, really?
Oh, I think she was doing that completely to get back at Superman for being all suspect earlier and not just being straightforward with her about what was happening in the fortress and about being Clark and all that. No, she was fucking with him.
Yeah, but I'm of all the parts that I agree with Steve on. I was like, that was just weird. It was unnecessary. I don't know.
This is not a part that I would have gotten rid of. There are actually 3 entire issues I would have just scrapped, but we'll get there. And you do need something for Superman to do and start to lay the seeds of the full story to come. I think that's the point of this, is you get Lois seeing the world through Superman's perspective, and then you start to get hints about what's going to happen in the story. You get told about the 12 labors, and you get the newspaper of him dying. So it's some nice foreshadowing.
Yeah. I will say about issue 3 that it contains another panel that I really like, artwork wise. It is this one here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I just like the artwork.
Nice booty shot.
Whether or not it's necessary to the story, I don't know, but I just like the artwork in it.
Well, according to this story, that was like their first kiss and that kind of thing. So,
yeah,
it's good artwork. I mean, nice booty shot on Lois there. I mean, I don't know.
Sir, it's a cartoon.
Yeah. It's still you had some discussion points that I thought we should probably start getting into, because I really liked some of the questions that you asked.
Okay, yeah.
In the notes here. One of the questions you asked was, discuss the type of hero Superman is in this book compared to other iterations.
Okay, well, while you guys mull this over, let me tell you the genesis of this question.
Okay.
Years ago, I got a CD lecture series from the Moore Public Library on fantasy literature. It was done by this guy who's a philologist and
I'm sorry, a what?
A philologist. It's big into languages. It's what Tolkien was. That's Tolkien's job. What he did as a professor. But in this series of lectures, he talks about heroism and how it's seen in different ages. And he uses the example of starting with Beowulf and how Beowulf is just a fucking dick. He is arrogant and just know he's the bee's knees and everything. So that's how heroism was recognized back when that was written. Then you have Aragorn from the books, who knows he's the rightful king, but is not a jerk about it. And then you have Aragorn in the movies, who's a reluctant hero and a reluctant leader. And that's a fascinating way of looking at heroism, and I think that Silver Age Superman, and in this book, it's a good representation of Lord of the Rings book Aragorn.
Okay. Compared to other iterations, why don't you start, JD?
He walked away.
I had to step away for just a second. Just a second. I mean, I don't. Other than I thought the bumbling Clark Kent part of it, like we were talking about, Dave. I thought it was that was a little out of character for the last ones, because I don't think he's always trying to be as like falling all over himself and bumbly, because it was kind of a weird that he was writing all these interesting news pieces about different things, but yet as a person he was just completely like a train wreck. So I thought that part of it was different. But as far as the Superman part of it was concerned, I think he displayed maybe even more like hope and love for things more than what he did. But and that might have been a byproduct of him, of his powers growing. And I think at one point they kind of said that he became more interested in things. Like I thought it was kind of cool that he like resurrected the Titanic and was trying to put it back together, and they actually had dinner on the Titanic. It's kind of fun, that was, I was like, okay, that's all right, I got you. But it was, he said he became more interested in art and things like that, and it was just like intellectually he became more, his brain became higher, and he was getting more intelligent about things. But it just seemed like he was almost more I don't know, maybe more mushy in this sense, I guess, because he knew he was dying, so he was trying to get everything out of the way when it came to Lois and stuff like that. So he was a little bit more mushy, I think, maybe. I don't know if that's the way to describe it.
Okay. Steve, what about you?
I feel like overall, like, he wasn't really a different kind of hero than he was in most iterations. I mean, obviously there are some Superman stories that deviate quite a bit, unfortunately. I other than the fact that he's being a hero, man, I'm not sure how to explain. I mean, he's facing morality. I mean, he's dying. Mortality. That's the word I'm looking for. He's facing mortality. And he, like I said originally, he spends his book. He wants to make sure that Earth is going to be okay, because he's like, okay, I'm going to die. I need to find somebody to take over for me. So he is trying to find somebody out there with his level of goodness. Somebody who's going to be a caretaker of the planet. Other than that, a lot of this is just Superman being Superman, in my own opinion. He's a hero. He is the quintessential hero. He does it because he can, not because he has to.
Yeah, I see that. So I'm in my head, I think about like the way that the personality of Superman is portrayed in this, and compare it to, say, Secret Origin or the Superman and Lois series. And there is a difference. It is, I don't know, there's something more. Those other two he's more humble, and not that he is arrogant in this. It's super sure of himself, and
okay,
I don't know. It's hard to explain, but
no, I kind of get where you're coming from. He is a different personality wise. He is different than the Tyler Hoechlin Superman. As Tyler is definitely a little more humble. Do you get hints here and there in this book that he kind of dives into being godlike?
I think a bit. I think the thing that in this book is that he, again, like the Silver Age, he is more alien than human. And he goes by Kal-El in a lot of ways. He really identifies with all this Kryptonian stuff. And it's like, okay, but you were raised your entire childhood, your life, thinking you were human in Kansas. Where is that?
Yeah. And I don't remember which issue it's in.
But he kind of laments to that though too. Also that he when he leaves for a while and then he comes back and those two are kind of taking over those two Kryptonian astronauts show up.
Man, they were jerks. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he kind of laments to that though, because they talk about, well, we're Kryptonian, we're superior, we need to take over, we need to blah blah blah. And he says, no, I grew up here, I'm from Krypton, but I grew up here, and these people are good people, and blah blah blah. So he really kind of goes into how they don't need to take over in order to be good people, and he was kind of hoping that maybe they would take over for him when he left. They saying, oh, can you, I'm hoping that you guys will take over for me when I'm not here. You guys can be my replacements. And, then he has to go through this whole thing. And it isn't until they have to face their own mortality that they finally realize that, oh, crap, maybe we shouldn't be dicks. Or, they kind of, and he saves them and sends them to the Phantom Zone to keep them alive. That's the only, and then they kind of figure out that what he's been doing this whole time is it's not about taking over and being, the superior race. It's about kindness, and it's about, hope and taking care of people.
Right. So I found the panel I'm looking for. I don't know what issue this is, but this is, to me, the essence of why Superman is the way he is. And this is the type of Superman we should always have. And it comes from what he says here at Pa Kent's funeral. He taught me that a good heart is worth more than all the money in the bank. He taught me about life and death. He showed me by example how to be tough and how to be kind and how to dream of a better world. Those are lessons I'll never forget. That, to me, is Superman.
Yeah, that's a great moment. It's not the moment in this book that often gets cited as the moment, and we'll get there. But yeah, I love that speech, the eulogy he's giving.
Yeah,
so
he didn't learn how to be a hero from Krypton. He learned how to be a hero from Jonathan Kent.
Yeah. So since we kind of jumped ahead, let's talk about real quick the two issues that came right before this, the Bizarro issues.
Okay.
Okay. This is here. I'm just going to tell you I would cut the two Bizarro issues, and I would cut the Jimmy Olsen issue. I freaking hated those. When I was doing my reread, I'm like, why is this here? This is so terrible. This is Silver Age nonsense. And it wasn't the writing. The writing was good. The artwork was fantastic. It's just, I hate those elements. I really dislike the Silver Age.
Well, hate is a strong word. I will say that I agree that I would have left the Bizarro issues out. I'm not sure which Jimmy Olsen issue you're talking about.
That's issue number 3. It's the part of the story right before he goes to see Lex in the prison.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know if I would have left that. Definitely the Bizarro issues, though. Those were completely unnecessary. I didn't like them. I wouldn't say hate.
I also dislike Bizarro as a character, so it's.
I see. I don't dislike him, but I can see why you would dislike him.
Yeah. JD, what do you think about the Bizarro sections of the story?
Like trapped on the Bizarro world. It was just like, come on.
It was, yeah. Well, like you said, unnecessary. I wouldn't say it's the most unnecessary part, but that part was kind of like, I don't really remember a whole lot of it because I kind of skimmed through it and was like, okay, sure. Yeah, it didn't really, like I said, it was a section I think they could have done without, really, to be honest. I think I think this was a like quick, fast, and in a hurry introduction to like some of his like greatest adversaries, if you will. So they were just kind of going through a real quick, like, I'm surprised at one point he didn't, like, Doomsday didn't just show up for some stupid reason.
Actually, in that Jimmy Olsen fight, he takes a serum that turns him into Doomsday, so he can fight. Because it's all okay. It's bad.
I remember what issue you're talking about now. Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on. The next, going back to that part, going through the story, the next part is the Gospel according to Lex Luthor. This is where Clark visits Lex in prison, does the interview with Lex, and how Lex has all this crap in prison, I don't know. He's got stuff all over the place.
I was wondering about that. I mean, he's in prison. What is he doing with all that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a great line in here. It's what is it? You write like here it is. You write like a poet, but you move like a landslide.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's the part I was talking about earlier when they said he writes like a poet. He writes like he's like, he's smart. He acts like he's got a sense of intelligence, but he's like a bumbling like idiot. And it's like that just is such a contrast. How does a guy write articles so well, but in his actions he's just, you know what I mean? It was like, it's a little weird. I don't know. But I mean, it would make sense that they're just trying to overemphasize the fact that they don't want people misinterpreting, like even thinking that Clark Kent is Superman. Yeah. And,
so what did you all think of this portrayal of Lex?
Pretty solid, pretty standard. I mean,
I think he was pretty standard. It seemed like he was the one that we normally see.
Yeah, it's to me kind of quintessential Lex Luthor.
Yeah. There's one part that it cracks me up. When during the interview, Lex is on a treadmill running, holding, weights, and then stops and insists on looking at Clark's notes. And he's like, "What is this?" And Clark says, "Shorthand." And he acts like he doesn't know what shorthand is. I'm like, how do you not know what shorthand is? That threw me for a loop. I'm like, what?
But if you look at what he wrote, it does not look like shorthand. It looks like it would be like Kryptonian or something.
It probably was.
Yeah, but why would Superman risk somebody reading his notes by writing Kryptonian on a notepad? I mean, because then somebody would figure out, who he is. It's like that seems kind of obvious and stupid.
Yeah,
but yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Unintelligible squiggles.
So after that, we get the issue, one of, I think, the really important issues in the series, number 6, that is, hold on, let me find the title of it. It's the one where Clark goes back to the farm, or he's on the farm, and you see him. It's where Pa Kent dies.
Oh yeah, that funeral in Smallville.
Yes. And we get, all the Supermen from the future. And yeah.
This is, if we were doing like an issue by issue discussion, I would probably say this might be my favorite issue of the series.
What do you think of this part of the story, JD?
As far as like, like we said, they were talking about a real, how intelligent Luther was and how much connected he was. Because like Steve said, he's in prison and he's got these switches and he's got these accesses that he's leaving and he's doing all these things and stuff like that. And it's like, he's so intelligent, but
oh no, we're talking about the next issue.
The next, the part of the story that's in Smallville on the farm, Jonathan Kent dies.
Yeah,
all the Supermen from the future all come and hang out.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. I thought that was still the same issue. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
No, yeah. Like I said, once again, it's one of those things that it threw me for a loop because of all the stories that had been there before. I just wasn't sure, and I think I'm just gonna say this now. That's what I think throws me for a loop. And the biggest thing about comics is it just the inconsistency. It's hard to keep track of what's what. And like we said, I had to finally come to the realization that this was a one-off story, that this actually didn't have anything to do with canon, or that it didn't have anything to do with like a normal mythos or a normal storyline. This was just kind of a one-off sandbox short story kind of thing. And I think, what did you call it earlier, Dave? You called it something else.
Standalone story, an Elseworlds.
Yeah, Elseworlds, an Elseworlds story. Yeah, I had to keep convincing myself that that's what it was, and because I know, like in the movies, Jonathan Kent dies, in some of the comics, he's still alive, and like I said, the biggest one that I noticed was back in the Death of Superman, he was still alive, and it was just that was going through and kind of reconciling that part of it, but. I mean, other than that, I mean, they all knew who they were and they showed up for the funeral, which really showed like respect for the family because they raised Superman and they raised him up to be the way that he was and raised him to be the all, kind of the one of the superheroes that all other superheroes look up to. And, it's the fact that he had such a great family that made that possible with the Kents. And then one of that, when Jonathan dies, it's such a, they know it's such a big deal for him that they wanted to support him for it. I thought it was cool. Overall, I thought it was good.
So here's what threw me about this issue that I finally clicked this last time I read it. So the Superman with the bandages all over his face that is revealed at the end to be regular Superman. Mm-hmm. That's the Superman that we're following through this series. Not the one who's talking to Pa Kent. They went back in time to this moment where Pa dies, so Clark could have a few more minutes talking to his dad, and then went back to the future. And that's what, for the longest time, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And so when I was reading it this last time and I figured that out, I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. And I appreciated that part of the story more.
The only thing I worry about a lot of these is like, I'll go off on a Marvel tangent for a second, like Endgame. When they start tampering with time travel and then they can start just like manipulating it whatever way they want or start doing things. And like for like Superman, like if he can travel through time or he can go to different places in time, he could stop events from happening before they ever could. And like, if he knows something tragic happens, he just have to go back and fix it. So it's like things would nothing bad would ever happen that the regular world would ever know of because he can go back and change it all the time. And it's always weird to me how they, and maybe he's being responsible about it. He's not using it that way. But it'd be so tempting not to. It'd be so tempting not to go back and change things, or to make one thing in history that was pretty tragic, to change that one thing from happening. So it's always just kind of weird for me to see the use of time travel in some ways. I don't know. It's a really weird. It's just a really kind of a fine line plot device, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Steve.
So the thing that threw me off about that particular section is if that is the Superman that we're looking at, but in the future, does that mean he didn't die?
No. So, okay. So there's some 3D chess going on here, right? Okay. So the issue opens up.
It's the reason that I don't understand it.
Yeah. So the issue opens up with Clark and Pa Kent talking. It goes along. Then all these dudes show up, and they're from the future, and they're helping out on the farm and everything. And one of them has a question mark on his uniform, and has bandages all over. That character is the Superman we've been following since issue 1, who went back in time to revisit a moment. But at the very end of the issue, you get 3 more time travelers who come out, one of whom is Gold, and he gives Superman a flower to put at Pa Kent's grave. That is Superman from this story after he went into the sun and was in the sun for a long time, starting it back up. And there's he just makes a little quip about it. And I've read this book multiple times, and it was literally this last time that it hit me. I was like, oh, okay. So we have 3 different versions of Superman, the same character from 3 different points of time in this issue.
Because I know at the end, well, I mean, I know we haven't got to the end yet, but yeah, they kind of leave it open to where she says he's fixing the sun. So if that is in fact the guy that comes out after he's done, then that would make sense.
Yeah, I think it's still very confusing.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew it was the time travel thing, but I was like, that's what cringed me about it. I was like, the time travel thing to me always in movies is like really weird because it's, or not movies, but in movies and stories and things like that, unless it's done really well and there's a consistency about it, it's like it's just a plot device that ends up causing more questions than it does answering them. And I know that's just me. It's really weird. Like I said, Endgame was one of those ones where I was like, they just completely re-explained how time travel works, and it completely threw an entire loop into it. And I went, that's why Endgame was like less on the scale for me, was because I was like, the time travel thing was just like, nah, I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. So
time travel stories are confusing.
Yes. Well, and if it in from this one to Endgame to other stories that use time travel, it's like, okay, is it this way or is it not? I mean, obviously nobody knows. I mean, from a scientific standpoint, we don't even know if it's possible. So, I mean, basically in a story, you can manipulate it however you want to tell a story. But in a lot of times, unless it's used in something really specific and it's really concise and clear how it's used, it's almost a lazy plot device. And I'm just kind of like,
yeah. Interesting.
So
what were you about to say, Steve?
Confusion, time travel, multiple Supermans, confusion aside, it's still probably one of, if not my favorite issue, just because of the relationship he has with his dad, and how poignant it is to the character as a whole.
Now, I heard, maybe Dave, maybe Steve, maybe one of you guys can confirm this. I don't know. But I kind of was under the impression that the James Gunn, the new Superman, is kind of got its inspiration from this version. Am I wrong on that? Or
No, it was inspired by 3 different storylines: All-Star Superman, Superman for All Seasons, and Superman Birthright. And there are very much elements that you can see taken from, at the very least, both All-Star and Birthright, where they're very specific things. It's like you look at it and say, "Oh, this was taken from this series." So yeah, it was. They were, I think, partly they were going for a similar tone, and something we'll talk about a little bit later is this is considered one of the great Superman stories. So that's another reason why I think it was one to pull from, and it's just it gave me hope when those 3 books were the ones mentioned that were going to be kind of the cornerstone, and a little bit of Kingdom Come were going to be the cornerstone of this. I thought, okay, they're hitting this the right way.
Yeah.
Also, this issue has another panel artistically that I really liked.
Oh
yeah. Yeah. And that's the flower. One. That's the flower below him too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love this panel.
Yeah.
All right. So jumping ahead, we already talked about the nonsense of the Bizarro stories and the other Kryptonians. That gets us to the last 3 issues. Issue 10 is probably my favorite. It's a combination Day in the Life of and Last Will and Testament. And you've got, it opens with Superman flying this bus over the pyramids in Egypt, him visiting some sick kids in a hospital. And this issue has the scene that I think this book is known for, and one of the moments that makes this book so special. What'd you guys think of this part of the story?
I think this was a really good part of the story. A really good issue. Is this the one where he's trying, like, he shrinks the dude down and sends him to the bottled city?
Yes. Yeah, there's the bottled city in there. He fights a big robot, and I think Toyman is in it. And then he's talking to Lois, and he says, "Hold up, I'll be right back." And
I think the panel that you might be referring to is another panel that I wanted to bring up, that not just artistically, but I do like it artistically. But I think I might be wrong, but this is another definitive panel of the story. Is this the one you're talking about? Oh, this
is the page.
This is such, that is it. Yeah, it's great. You've got this girl clearly about to commit suicide, and he basically just says things aren't as bad as they seem. And this is a hug, and it's just like, oh man.
This is such a beautiful moment. JD, what do you think of that moment in the story?
I mean, I liked it. That to me is the quintessential Superman thing. Like we always talk about when we talk about, like, even when we rated our characters, like what emulates hope, what emulates, his overall mission as Superman, and what he chose to do was to was to be a guiding light for people, and he comes in and he tries to, not only help her, but he tries to, install some knowledge and say it's not so bad, it's not as bad as you think. But I think a lot of this issue is him. They're going through and they're just explaining. I mean, he's going through and he's doing all these feats and these different things, and it's kind of showing, because at one point I think he says something about he has a bunch of things that he wants to do before his time is up. And he wanted to try to help as many people as he could. He wanted to try to help the miniature city. He wanted to try to do these different things. And so he's just trying to go around and do and show that all the things, just try to do what he does best before his time is up. And I think that's what a lot of this was.
I think what another thing that's really great about that panel is directly preceding, he's sitting here having this conversation with Lois about, oh, I'm going to die. And she's, there's got to be a way. So they're having this like come to Jesus kind of conversation. He's like, hold that thought. And
he does what he does.
He
does what he does best.
From jumping off a building.
He does what he does best. He doesn't want to have a conversation with her about it. He just wants to finish doing what he does as a hero and as a guiding light and as hope.
Superman doing what
Superman does. It's Superman doing what Superman does. And in this universe, he just confessed that he was Superman and confessed his feelings to Lois. So at that point, it's like, but I'm still Superman. I'm still Superman. And while I'm here, I'm still going to I'm still going to save people, and I'm still going to do what I do. So, yeah. And the fact that and that's the one thing that, he didn't, it's almost as if he didn't fly up there and pull her off and say, you're coming with me and blah, blah, blah. He actually tried to, offer her some comfort and tell her that everything's not so bad and almost let her make the choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like not force her into a decision to not do it. Just kind of say, hey, it's not as bad as you think it is. You don't have to do this, blah, 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 blah. And try to be a more of a guidance and, say, hey, just, think about it first. Because ultimately, in that case, it would have to be her decision, because if he doesn't try to offer her some type of path, it's going to end up being that she's going to try to do it again.
Yeah.
So if he can convince her that it's not worth it, then that's better than just stopping her, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I agree. So this brings us to the final two issues. I think of this as, if this was a TV series, this would be your 2-hour season finale or series finale. And we get Solaris, what's his full name? I forget, but his name's Solaris. It's the sun thing. And we get the fight with that. And we see Lex bust out of jail because he takes the Superman serum and they electrocute him, but he doesn't die.
Right.
You kind of saw that coming.
Yeah. So there's a particular moment in this part where Solaris has fallen to Earth because he's been attacked by a Sun Eater, which he then kills, and Superman's beaten the ever-living tar out of him. And there's a moment where he's standing in front of a beaten Solaris, and Solaris asks for mercy, and he says, "You'll live," and then just punches the crap out of him. So that scene in the animated movie plays out a little bit differently. And if you're curious about this, I wrote a piece for my Substack a while back, re-examining this book, and I bring up this whole part. And in the film, instead of replying with "You'll live," he says, "I don't think I have any left." And I was like, wow, that is dark.
That's Zack Snyder dark. What the hell?
Yeah. And then you get So we get the part where Clark dies and goes to Kryptonian purgatory or whatever. And there's some beautiful moments in that where he's talking to his dad, I think. What were your thoughts on that part?
JD?
Oh.
Liked it that much, huh?
Well, that was it confused me. I'll tell you, it confused me a little bit because they said, like you said, Clark died, and I was like, huh? So it was that was a part that was confusing for me. I don't know. It was weird, so it was kind of hard to follow a little bit, if that makes sense.
No, I can see. This is absolutely a book that you get more and more out of with every reread. So I would suggest in a couple years, read it again, and you'll pick up more stuff. Because even when Grant Morrison is constraining himself, they write stories within stories within stories, and it is deep and it is dense, and it is often really hard to follow. So,
and the other confusion part of it too is it might be that I'd read it about a month ago.
Yeah.
I read it after we discussed what we were going to read next. I read it then. So, I mean, I remember it being in there. So I'm like, but it was confusing. So maybe that's why I kind of omitted it from it wasn't even a talking point. Because I was kind of like, oh, it was confusing. It was weird. Because I was like, how can Clark Kent die and Superman's still alive? That doesn't make sense. But whatever. Maybe there's a detail I'm missing. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's his cells were exploding basically, and yeah, he does legitimately die. He's in the Kryptonian afterlife where he's talking to Jor-El, and Jor-El sends him back to finish his job, basically.
Yeah. So I know that one was not based on the other, but this reminds me of the Black Panther movie. That scene where he almost dies and meets his dad.
Yeah.
It kind of.
Yeah, because his dad, because in the movie, his dad in Black Panther, his dad tries to convince him that he doesn't need to do anything anymore, and then he tells them about them being wrong and everything they thought up to this point was wrong, and that's what created Killmonger. And so he says, "No, I have to go back. I have to finish this. I have to make it right.
Yeah.
It's my duty. I have to do it," and that kind of thing. So I got kind
Jor-El
of
basically telling him. Jor-El here is basically telling him, you're not done.
Right. And in fact, there is an almost word for word part from the story that was lifted and used in Man of Steel. And it's when Clark is in Kryptonian purgatory, and I'm just going to read it. This is Jor-El speaking. You have given them an ideal to aspire to, embodied their highest aspirations. They will race and stumble and fall and crawl and curse, and finally, they will join you in the sun, Kal-El.
And I love that quote. That's probably one of the best parts of the Man of Steel. So I remember that now.
And I think the best part of the Man of Steel movie it are the scenes with Jor-El. I think that movie portrayed Jor-El better than it portrayed the title character.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
That
I'm a Russell Crowe fan, so.
I mean, anybody could have done that role, and that depiction would have been great.
Yeah.
But yeah,
now I do remember that, and I love that quote because I was like, and there was another quote in there too, and I can't remember what it was, but there was another one that made me think of the movie, but I can't remember. But that now I remember that quote. Yeah, now I got you.
But yeah, he basically has a conversation with Jor-El, and who, as far as we know, up to this point, he's never met him. We
Right.
don't
Other than
we
like
don't know
other than
that
the
he's met Jor-El.
other than the holograms. He had the holograms though, didn't he?
I think
But
so,
did
but that's still
but did he
different.
have them in this story?
They never really addressed that because they have the robots, and I mean the Fortress of Solitude's there. So I mean, at that point, I
Yeah.
just kind of assumed that was the case.
I guess that's a safe assumption, but we never really know. But
Yeah.
you know, he meets his dad, and his dad's basically, "You're not done. You got more to do," and sends him back. And that's when he has his fight with Lex,
which I want to get into.
Okay.
So in this fight, Clark uses the gravity gun on Lex, which makes Lex heavier, which makes time speed up for him. I'm not a master of physics or anything, and the theory of relativity, what little I know about it, confuses bejesus out of me, but I'm just going to go with it. But there's a moment where it all clicks for Lex, and he sees the mechanics of the universe, and there's in this it brings up the idea that the universe is held together by thought. And there's a moment he says, this is Lex, this is how he sees all the time, every day, like it's all just us in here together, and we're all we've got. And Lex has come to tears. It's wonderful.
He's finally realizing what everybody's been trying to tell him the whole time, which is that he didn't need to fight Superman because Superman wasn't. He kind of like the new movie Superman. You know, he feels he makes mistakes. He does things all the time. He's just the same as everybody else. And Lex finally figures out that it's all part of the same. You know, they're all part of the same. What is it? Flow, I guess, or energy of the universe, I guess, or something like that. You know, it's kind of how he looks at it. Yeah. So, yeah, and then that's interesting because he's finally getting it. You know, he finally gets it. And it takes him actually, and that's what, and like at the beginning, is like Superman was saying, I'm going to give you something. I'm actually going to give you a gift of me so you can see things through my eyes and see things the way I see them. And maybe it'll change your perspective. Because as genius as he was, as Lex was, if you can imagine if he was actually a good guy who did things for people for the good of man instead of trying to be greedy and be selfish and take it all for himself and him be the one that everybody looks up to or everybody is infatuated with like they are with Superman. I think that was the biggest thing was he had the genius, he had everything he needed. What he didn't have is he didn't have the affirmation of the people. Like Superman did. All Superman had to do was save a few people, and the next thing you know, he's a god. Where Lex has this vast amount of intelligence and create these great things, but nobody looks at him the way they do Superman.
And then, so after the fight, at the very end, we have Superman gives Lois a hug, tells her he loves her, flies off into the sun, and saves the day. And then we get a moment where there's a park, and I guess there's going to be a service for Superman. But if you look at the statue that's on this page, that statue is the statue that was in the Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow by Alan Moore. Yeah, I love that little nod. And especially because that was the last story of Silver Age Superman. That is where that character ended.
I knew I had seen that statue from somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where.
And I just love that. And then we get the prologue or the epilogue where the genius guy from earlier had some of Superman's DNA, and it's basically like, we just need a woman to inseminate. Let's go. And that is how there were all these Supermen from the future. Because, this is implying that Lois is going to be artificially inseminated with Superman's DNA.
Well, yeah, because at one point he makes a point to tell her that they won't be able to have kids.
Yeah,
I think there was one point in there where he said we can't have kids because our DNA is too, or our, the history of our genetics is too different. We can't. But because Lex wrote all that information down because he had cracked the code, now they can figure out how to do that and be able to give her his child without, with basically, be able to give him the child without, would not have to work around anything. I don't know whatever. But yeah, so it made sense. And like when they were going, oh yeah, now he needs a healthy ovum and somebody to give birth to the child. And I'm like, I think we know who that is.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things that's one of the questions Steve came up with that I really like is, what do you think the influence of this story is on modern Superman media? So
I feel like we've touched on that a lot already. I mean, we've got the influence that it had on the 2025 Superman movie.
Mm-hmm.
Obvious, I hadn't even thought about it, but obviously the influence on Man of Steel, but not so much on the character himself. Outside of that, I don't know.
I actually, Dave, I keep thinking of something, coming back to something that you were talking about, is that you were talking about like Superman was the ultimate embodiment of hope. And one of our first episodes, we talked about what Superman in the movies like portrayed that the best. And it was, when we talked about like the death of Superman and how he got beaten and he basically sacrificed his life to defeat Doomsday. Well, this time he actually, controversially, obviously we know now because of the flashback scene and the way you explained it, that he does somewhat sacrifice his life by returning the sun back to its normal state so they can live normally and the earth isn't overtaken by cold or whatever. But we know later that he comes out of it and potentially comes out probably a different person, probably comes out with different powers that, could be a different version of Superman or whatever. Maybe he evolved or maybe something different happened to him. Who knows? He's some type of god or whatever. Because it kind of seemed like that was kind of the basic theme. Because like he was literally creating like universes in these little balls that he was feeding to this monster, with a hammer. It kind of gives you that. It kind of gives you that godlike. How many superheroes do you know can create universes in a little pocket and then feed it to something? I mean, I don't. It doesn't seem like So maybe after he got out of it, he became different or whatever. But the ultimate, if it's not him sacrificing himself and ultimately dying, and then the reborn story, it was almost as if the symbolism of him going into the sun and restoring the sun back to the way it was almost like an enlightenment in like Buddhist religion, like an enlightenment and going to a higher place with a higher power kind of thing. Ooh. And it's like an ultimate nod to hope and to the future and to the the sacrifice of a hero is even going further beyond just being Superman and becoming something new.
I like that. I like that a lot. So one of the things that I have thought about, especially since working in libraries and taking, going back to college and taking classes on comics. I took one as an undergrad and one as in grad school. And in those, there's one of two books seems to get mentioned when talking about superhero comics, and it's Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen. And I think All-Star Superman should now supplant those books and should be the go-to superhero book. What do you think?
So, can we kind of couple this with the if you were teaching a class on question that you had?
Yeah. So with it, to get those thought juices flowing, if you were teaching a class on comic books and graphic novels, would this be part of your curriculum?
Okay. So to answer both questions in a way, and this might be blasphemy, but while I would include All-Star Superman, I would not include either of those other books. Because for one, I don't like Watchmen. I just don't like it. I don't care about that book, and I don't understand why it's as popular as it is. That being said,
I like the movie.
See, I didn't like the movie either. I was just like, eh. But so The Dark Knight Returns, I have a weird relationship with that. Whereas I used to really love that book. Like, it was a favorite Batman story.
Now you're talking about the one where he recovers from the spine injury and he takes on Azrael. Is that what you're talking about?
No, this is a story.
It's the Frank Miller future Batman.
Clark is old. He comes out of retirement because
Superman's a fascist.
And hangs out with Ronald Reagan.
Used to like that book. In the last, let's say 5 years, just to play it safe, I have gone back, and I don't remember when it was, reread it, and I'm like, I really don't like this book. For one, to be relevant to the show, I don't like at all the way Superman is portrayed. Cannot 100%. Stand that version of Superman. Frank Miller has no business writing Superman.
Oh, in that book. Oh.
In general. Yeah, no business writing Superman. So not only would I not include either of those books, I would definitely include All-Star Superman if I was talking about for lack of a better way to phrase it, a quintessential superhero story.
What about you, JD?
I think you could, because one, I think you could include it in some of them, because this one has, like, Watchmen being a very very dark, what I want to say, like, dark philosophical comic book, that kind of thing, that has a lot of dark undertones. And I have not read that version of The Dark Knight Returns, so I can't comment on that one specifically, but I'm assuming with the Batman mythos that, I mean, from his perspective with the trauma and all that kind of stuff, you're talking about two different comic books that if they're included, it's more of a darker storytelling type of thing, where this one, as I said, at the end, you get this very symbolic gesture of ultimate sacrifice and even going above and beyond. And and for me, kind of being, obviously we talk about, on Rebel Nerd Radio, when we have our regular shows, we talk about Star Wars and different things. And I'm going to make a reference to that real quick. Whenever people talk about The Last Jedi and they talk about Luke's death at the end, I don't see him as being a death. I see it as being a passing on to a higher plane, a higher existence, which is, again, deeply rooted in things like Buddhism, where it's not death, but it's passing on to a plane of enlightenment, of higher learning, of higher being, and things like that. And I look at it as Luke did that. And at this one, that's the way I saw it with Superman in this one. And so this being a very condensed, a very compared to the entirety of the Superman story, from when he was created to up to now, with all the movies, the TV shows, everything that encompasses what most of us know about Superman, at least the three of us know about Superman. This is a very compact telling of that story, but it also it shows the very finer points of what Superman is, not just a person, but the symbol and what he represents and everything. And so this could be a very definitive example of how to tell a story of ultimate hope and ultimate, like, sacrifice, and ultimate, moving beyond just being like a man of steel who's indestructible, who can't be killed, who can't, this is showing not only weakness, but he can but after, he figures out how to solve a problem, he just keeps growing and growing and growing in his abilities, and when he moves on. So, and then, like I said, the ultimate sacrifice at the end. So I think this could be a lighter way of like going through and saying, okay, if you want to create a comic book about hope and about, things that aren't necessarily dark, or create an inspiring story, this is the one this is kind of the overview summary of how you could do that. And then you could go into the other Superman stories that have existed and say, okay, well, there's actually a deeper, the mythos of Superman and the mythos of Lex Luthor and Lois Lane and of all these characters. There's such a deeper, vaster ocean of information out there, but this is kind of an introductory to that.
Okay. Yeah. So I would definitely include it in a class, but it would also kind of depend on what exactly the class was. So the two classes I took, one was an English class, so it was coming from a literary perspective, and the other was a library class, and so it was coming from a library services perspective. And the thing with these two books is Dark Knight and Watchmen are legitimately two of the most important comic books ever written, ever made. They are the delineation. That is when the Bronze Age ended, is with when those books started to come out, and they changed comics forever. Not everyone learned the right lessons, but they changed it forever. And I think that this is something that I would like to see in like the scholarship that goes around comics. I would like to see some study of books like All-Star Superman, because at this point, I mean, Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen have been discussed, analyzed, torn apart ad nauseum for 30 years. So can we talk about something else? And also, so with Dark Knight specifically, we read that for my undergrad class, and it was so fascinating reading it the second time, because since I knew so much more about Frank Miller, his philosophy, his political ideology, and you're reading it, you're like, oh, okay, I know where this is coming from. Also, they are so 1985. I mean, those books are so mid-'80s. And at this point, we are so far removed from the mid-'80s that trying to, especially Dark Knight Returns, trying to explain the context of when these stories were born, because that's very important. So if you're doing like a history of comic books, you absolutely have to talk about them. You probably have to read one or two. If you're doing a literary examination, I would get rid of those and I would put in All-Star Superman. But this does segue into another question that we had. Do you think this is a good story to hand to someone who's never read a Superman comic?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I think for the same reasons I was talking about, is that this is a very quick and dirty, very fast paced, in my opinion. I mean, maybe not, because like you said, it's several panels, it's several different comics. But in my opinion, given the entirety of the Superman mythos, this is a very quick and dirty version of it. And the story is written well enough that I think people would be like, wow, okay, yeah, I think if I could get into it a little deeper and investigate more about this character, it would be fun. But they just have to realize, like for me, it was hard for me to get past the fact that it wasn't, which storyline were we talking about? Which Superman are we talking about? Which character arc are we, it's just, where does it fit into that? And then just to say, hey, this is just a one-off. It's a real quick and dirty version of Superman, but it's an excellent story. It's a great segue into it, and just go in with that idea and then go from there. And you can see, how then you can go from there and see how thick the story, how thick the character is in history and things like that.
So there are two Superman books that off the top of my head, I'm sure I could think of more if I thought about it more, but there are 2 Superman books that I would recommend to somebody if they've never read Superman. They're going to like, I want to get who Superman is. It'd be this one and probably Up in the Sky.
Yeah, so I think this is one you can hand someone and who's never read a Superman comic and just knows by what you learn by being alive in modern society because of osmosis, basically. It wouldn't be my first choice or my second or my third. Yeah, no, those would be Superman Up in the Sky, Superman for All Seasons, and Superman Secret Origin. I think those I would hand those to somebody first.
Yeah, I didn't really think about Secret Origin.
I think it all kind of depends on the personality of the person you're dealing with too, because it just some people would handle it. Some people would handle comics very differently, so they'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to read this; it's too big."
I probably need to go back and read that one again. It's been a while since I've read that one.
Which one?
A Secret Origin.
Secret Origins.
And that of those books I mentioned, that is the only one that was in the canon of the ongoing series. It was an updated version of his origin after an event called Infinite Crisis. And I think Final Crisis might have happened too before it came out. Yeah, I've read that book like 4 times, and I still don't know what the hell's going on.
That's the thing. I just don't get it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one affected by that. The fact that you can read something and go, "What?"
Yeah, that's the whole thing with Grant Morrison. Is I read that and I'm just like, ugh.
All right, so go ahead.
No, that is my whole. I won't say that's my whole beef with Grant Morrison. That's just the book that led me down the path to like, I don't like this. Right.
I mean, if that is, especially if it's one of your first things you ever read by Morrison, it can give.
And I think it was. I think it was.
It will put a bad taste in your mouth.
Right.
So 2 questions more before we get out of here.
Okay.
Do you think this book is important, and why?
Important to who?
Comic books, the greater Superman mythos.
I would say yes, and why? I just think that it is I think it's a definitive story to tell you about who he is as a character.
All right.
I don't know.
JD?
Yeah. I think it's important. I think it should be up there with if you're so if, like I said before, if you're introducing someone to Superman and somebody says, what kind of comics should I read to try to get into this? I think this would be one of the definitive ones that you would say, definitely read this, probably read, if not, read it first, be it one of the top 3 that you should read to get into it. Or if you've got somebody who's a huge Superman fan and they have not read this yet, it'd be like, hey, read it. It's good. Because I mean, like I said, it really is. It's a good Cliff Note summary of everything that makes up Superman, I think.
Okay. And final, before we get out of here, we got to give this thing a star rating out of 5 stars. What you got?
A star rating. Out of how many stars? Like, how are we talking? 5? Or are we
5.
talking?
We're channeling our inner Dave Meltzer.
Are we channeling Meltzer? Okay. So, if I had to answer that question 2.5 years ago, I would have said maybe a 2. Fast forward to 2025, and my perspective on Grant Morrison has changed, and my going into it with a more open mind, I think, would be a good way to put it, because I don't dislike him as much as I did. Oh man,
Do you need a minute?
Maybe 4.5.
4.5. JD?
I was going to say about a 4.5, because there were parts in there, like we said before, there were parts in there that I kind of like. It was, if it wasn't confusing, it was just unnecessary. And I think, yeah, so probably about a 4.5, and maybe I just, because I don't get why they put that part in there or whatever, or it was just the part that was confusing. I just didn't understand at the time. So it was just like, okay, well, 4.5 will do. I'm a 4.5.
Yeah, I'd say 4 or 4.5. Despite
I'd say 4.5.
Despite the Bizarro issue.
Yeah, I give it a 4. At one point I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, but in looking back at it, while I still think it is one of the most important Superman stories ever written, it's one of the big ones. It's, one you hand to somebody. There are problems with it. There are things that, I've read this thing 3 or 4 times, and it was literally that last time where it clicked with me, the Pa Kent issue, that he was time traveling. And there were 3 of him in that story. And it shouldn't have taken me like more than 3 readings to figure that out. So, and it just might be, Grant Morrison is way smarter than I am. So it's probably that. But
hey, I'm 100% glad you were able to explain it to us, because obviously we didn't get it.
So let's see. Next time, I'm looking at our list. Our choices are Superman Up in the Sky, the Superman Lois TV series, Superman Secret Origin, and Absolute Superman Volume 1.
Yeah, I was looking at this list also.
If we do the Lois and Clark or which one you said?
I don't think we're ready for the TV show.
We're gonna have to do some watching. I have to do a lot of watching.
I'm not ready for the TV show.
Yeah, I'm not.
And I want to do that a season at a time anyway. So
yeah, I would say maybe Last Dust of Krypton.
Okay, Absolute Superman Volume 1. That's fine with me.
Just because it's a little bit off the beaten track of All-Star Superman.
It is a very different take on the character.
Very, very different writer, very different artist, very different Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do Volume 1. We definitely need to do the others, but yeah, I think next we should do the Absolute Superman.
All right, sounds good. So in about 6 months, y'all, we'll come back and
we really should.
We're really trying not to do that.
We should try to do these closer together, and 2 months is kind of a bit of a wait. Anyway, so thanks. So the patrons are going to see this first because it's early access. It'll probably be a couple weeks before it hits YouTube. But either way, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy our Superman takes. And we'll see you next time. Later.